All right, let's open up the case file on what is without a doubt the greatest detective story of all time. Now, this mystery isn't hiding in some locked room or down a dark alley. Nope, it's right between your ears. We're talking about the human brain. And today, we're going to look at the incredible high-tech toolkit scientists are using to crack the case. So, where does any good detective start? Well, before you even step foot on the scene, you have to investigate the history, right? You've got to understand the subject's past to have any hope of making sense of its present. Let's start by looking at the brain's own family tree. And this means we're following a trail of evidence, not just through a single lifetime, but across millions and millions of years of evolution. We're going to compare our own minds to those of some of our most distant relatives. Now, the official name for this technique is the comparative approach. It's a really powerful method that helps us figure out how our own brain got to be the way it is by comparing it to the brains of all sorts of different species, from the tiniest, simplest worms all the way up to our closest primate cousins. The easiest way to wrap your head around this is to go back to our detective analogy. This is like investigating a family history. You're looking at the great-grandparents, the distant cousins, you're digging through the family tree to find shared traits and to see what makes the current generation so unique. And this whole family history approach reveals some absolutely crucial clues. First, there's a really clear pattern. As brains evolved and got more complex, so did behavior. Makes sense. We also found a key feature that makes mammals, and especially humans, stand out. This huge, wrinkly outer layer called the cortex. That's the headquarters for higher thought. But, this approach also uncovers old family secrets, like the true purpose of ancient parts deep inside the brain, like the limbic system, which we know is tied to emotion and memory, but is still pretty mysterious. Okay, so we've looked at the big, sweeping family tree of the species. Now let's zoom in. Way in. Let's focus on a single life. So instead of looking back millions of years, we're just going to look at a few decades. How does one brain go from what's basically a blank slate at birth to the incredible machine it is in an adult? This is what's called the developmental approach. It's the study of how an individual brain changes. We're talking its structure, its size, all the way from infancy right up to maturity. So if that last approach was the family history, you can think of this one as examining the origin story. It's kind of like a biographer tracing a hero's journey from their absolute earliest days, just to see how they became who they are. And this approach reveals something so critical. New behaviors are literally unlocked by the brain's growth. A baby doesn't just wake up one day and decide to walk. No way! First, the brain's motor regions have to physically mature, and that enables crawling. A little more development then unlocks walking, and later on, even more skilled movements. Every single step forward in what we can do is directly tied to a step forward in the brain's own development. So, we have the family history, and we have the origin story. What's next for our detective? Well, it's time to get out the magnifying glass and examine the scene itself, down to the absolute smallest detail. Now, this next tool has a pretty intimidating name, Cytoarchitectonic Analysis. But hey, don't worry about the term. All it really means is that we're zooming way in. We're studying the brain's cellular landscape, the specific size, the shape, and the layout of the neurons themselves. The absolute best analogy for this is dusting for fingerprints. It's all about meticulously, carefully, mapping every little detail of the environment to see how it's all put together. Every single cell is a potential clue. And here's what all that meticulous dusting reveals. By analyzing the cellular structure, scientists can create these incredibly detailed maps of the brain. Now, these maps are way more than just pictures. They show us which areas have different types of cells. And by using special techniques to stain active cells, they can even pinpoint the exact cellular neighborhoods involved in complex things like learning, or see how the brain actually works to recover from damage. It's amazing. Okay, we've got the history, we've got the upbringing, and we've got the physical blueprint. There's just one huge piece missing from our investigation. We need to see the suspect in action. We need to watch this whole mystery unfold in real time. And this brings us to our final tool, functional analysis. The goal here is pretty straightforward. Connect specific brain activity to a specific behavior. When you think, or when you speak, or when you move, what part of your brain is actually lighting up and doing the work? This is the really modern part of the detective kit. Forget the fingerprints and the history books for a minute. This is pure, live surveillance. It's watching what's happening as it happens. So how does this live surveillance actually work? Well, the basic idea is surprisingly simple. When a part of your brain gets active, let's say you just had a great idea, it needs more fuel, just like a muscle does when you use it. That active area starts pulling in more oxygen, and its metabolic rate just spikes. Modern imaging techniques are so sensitive they can actually detect that rush of oxygen, which essentially creates a real-time heat map of your brain at work. And that's how the case starts to come together. You see, it's never just one single clue. It's the combination of all four of these approaches: investigating the deep family history, examining the personal origin story, dusting for those cellular fingerprints, and finally, using live surveillance to see it all happen. Each one gives us a totally different piece of the puzzle. Today, we're going to learn a brand new language. No, not Spanish or French, but the language of the human body. All right, let's dive into the basics. Our first set of words basically acts like a compass for the body. They give us our most fundamental directions: front, back, middle, and side. Okay, first step, dorsal. This just means toward the back of the body. The classic way to remember this is to think of a dolphin's dorsal fin. It's right there on its back. For us humans, it's that simple. Your dorsal side is your back. And the opposite of dorsal, that would be ventral. This refers to the front side of the body. A super easy way to remember it is that your ventral side is your belly side. So let's just lock that in. Dorsal is your back, like that dolphin fin. Ventral is your front or your belly side. Got it? This is our first and most fundamental access for navigating the body. All right, now I want you to imagine a perfectly straight line drawn right down the center of your body, splitting you into a left and a right half. That imaginary line is called the midline, so anything that's described as medial is just closer to that center line. So if medial means moving toward the middle, you can probably guess what lateral means, right? It's the opposite. It describes moving farther away from that midline, out towards your sides. So, for example, your arms are lateral to your chest. The key takeaway here is super simple. Just think, medial is toward the middle and lateral is out to the side. Easy as that. You're doing great. Let's build on that vocabulary. Now we're going to get into another set of directions, kind of like up, down, near, and far. Okay, superior. This one's pretty straightforward. It just means above or toward the head. It's used to describe something that's higher up than something else. You might also hear the word rostral used, especially when people are talking about the brain and spinal cord. And the opposite of that, you guessed it, inferior. This means below or toward the feet. It's for anything that's lower down. Its fancier synonym, which you'll also hear in neurology, is caudal. So another simple pair, right? Superior is up toward your head. Inferior is down toward your feet. Your brain, for example, is superior to your heart, just because it sits physically above it in your body. All right, this next pair can be a little tricky at first, but you'll get it. It's mostly for talking about our limbs. First, we have proximal. This means closer to where a limb attaches to the body. So, for instance, your shoulder is proximal to your elbow because it's closer to your torso. And the opposite of that is distal. It means farther away from that point of attachment. If we stick with our arm example, your fingers are distal to your wrist, simply because they're further down the line from your torso. So you see, it's all relative to the body's core. Just think proximity for proximal, it's closer. And think distance for distal, it's farther away. It's all about its relation to the main part of your body. Okay, one final pair of directional terms, and these two are super important for understanding how our brain talks to and controls our body. So ipsilateral means on the same side, while contralateral means on the opposite side. And this is where things get really fascinating. A lot of our nerve pathways actually cross over the body's midline. This is exactly why a stroke that affects the left side of the brain can cause paralysis on the right side of the body. That's a perfect, real-world example of contralateral control. Okay, we've got the vocabulary down, so now let's put it all to work with a real-world example, the spinal cord. This is where all these abstract terms suddenly become very practical, very useful diagnostic tools. Just take a look at the vertebral column here. We can immediately start applying our new language. See the cervical vertebrae at the top? Well, they're superior to the thoracic vertebrae just below them. And the coccyx at the very bottom? That's the most inferior part of the whole column. See how it works? And here's a key number to remember, 31. The spinal cord itself is divided into 31 separate segments, and each one of these segments gives rise to a pair of spinal nerves that then branch out to the rest of the body. This chart breaks down that organization just beautifully. You can see how the superior cervical segments up top control the neck and arms, while the more inferior lumbar and sacral segments down below control the legs and pelvic organs. It's this incredibly organized system. And this brings us to why this language truly matters. When a radiologist is analyzing an MRI scan, they are using these exact words, dorsal, ventral, to describe the precise location of an injury or some kind of anomaly. This isn't just academic vocabulary. This precision is absolutely critical for making a diagnosis. It's fundamental to how modern medicine actually works.